Good morning, everybody. Week 14, college fantasy finals this week. We got Matt Bruning here breaking down some of the action that has already taken place. We'll dive into rankings then, help you get your lineup set for that championship matchup that we all know you're in. You all know you're in. You're subscribers to Campus to Canton. You watch us. You listen to us. You're in your championship. We know it. You know it. We'll dive into some underdog picks, win you a little bit of money. We've got some injury news that will be coming out. That'll be flowing all day. And then we'll hit some game picks. So we got some big matchups today, Matt. I know you have a big one that you're going to be watching.
Yeah. Yeah, I am not super excited about the matchup. You would expect Ohio State to win today against that team up north, but I think you would have expected it last year when that team up north could not throw the ball probably better than you or me playing quarterback for them, and yet they still found a way to win that game. So I am not super excited about it. Apologies to everybody. My internet might not be super great. I'm on a peninsula right now in South Texas, trying to enjoy a little bit of beach time. So. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to going to the Kraken to watch a bunch of games later today and hoping that Ohio State can end this, I think, 4-year run of losing right now. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we have somebody else in the chat who's backing the other side of that matchup. Headgear CFB, trying to go back-to-back in your CFF league. Best of luck to you. We got some lineups that will help you get set today. If you have lineup questions, drop them in the chat. We're going to get to all of them throughout the show. And then he says, go blue to finish that off. I personally just hope both teams lose.
I will say best of luck in you going back-to-back in your CFF league. We probably will not be answering any questions from you now. You should have left the go blue part out, and we would have definitely helped you. Sorry. Not sorry. Not today. It's the one day I will not be sorry for things like that.
It's rivalry weekend. We wouldn't expect any less. We had a couple of big rivalries already go down. We had the Egg Bowl. We had some good old-fashioned hate. And we also had, which I just found out, is called the Lone Star Showdown. Texas A&M and Texas. I did not know that was the name of that rivalry.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
I didn't either, and they probably should have not named it that. I disagree. Yeah. Horrible name.
I agree. All right, but I think that is obviously the most natural place to start here is that huge win from Texas over Texas A&M. Number 16 beats number 3. Texas A&M looking unlikely to make the SEC title game now. Obviously, a lot of eyes on the Iron Bowl for that one. But Marcel Reed in this one. Not good. Injured throughout part of the game. What do we think about him moving forward, and then Texas A&M's chances after that if he's banged up still?
Yeah, I mean, Marcel Reed was not great in this game. He did injure his ankle when he tried to escape the pocket. It looked like he probably rolled it, is what it looked like, because it wasn't like a non-contact. It wasn't like a player rolled up on it or anything, just kind of him trying to get out of the pocket. I believe it was early in the second quarter in that one, and just did not look the same. But what I will say is, I feel like he's actually struggled in games against defenses like Texas all year. Like, even though he ended up coming back in that South Carolina game, biggest comeback in school history, and some other games where they've ended up winning them, this Texas team found a way to put it together, and they ended up actually winning the game against Texas A&M. I think from a Aggies perspective, we're looking at this just from a college football perspective real quick, you should probably be happy that they're not going to the SEC championship game. If that ankle is really banged up like it seemed, Marcel Reed is now going to get a couple weeks, if not longer, to sit and heal that ankle up because they're not playing in the SEC championship game. It sucks that, they've been in the SEC conference longer than Texas now, and they've yet to make an SEC championship game, but you're getting a chance now to go for the big prize, the national championship. On the other side of things, just from a fantasy perspective, I honestly would not panic too much on Reed. I still think he's shown a decent amount of improvement this year. give him another year, and I think he could be a very interesting player. But yeah, I mean, it sucks for Aggie fans. Texas fans are now getting to, cheer and throw all kinds of dices as of, I guess, them trying to now make the playoffs because they beat the unranked Aggies.
Yeah. Obviously, like you said, other side of that one, Texas gets to talk a lot of crap for the rest of the year, at least until we see what happens in the playoffs there. But
yeah,
Arch Manning in this one, 14 to 29, 179 yards, a touchdown through the air, 53 yards rushing, touchdown on the ground. That big run on that third down, huge to get him in the end zone. And not a stellar statistical performance from him, but just another day at the office, taking what's given, not making mistakes. Is Arch Manning back? Is he what we thought he was originally? Has he bounced back?
I don't think so. I mean, one thing we've talked about on C2C Live, specifically Austin, is this Aggies defense, as good as it was earlier in the year, when they've played the better competition, they've struggled. And we've seen that they are not quite the defense we thought that they were going to be earlier in the year. I don't think that he has bounced back. He still does not look like the player we thought he was going to be. And maybe that's on all of us in just in the media and everybody else who were kind of hyping him up to be something maybe he just wasn't ready for, or that he wasn't. He's definitely looked better than he did earlier in the season, but I'd be hesitant to say that he looks truly back. He missed a couple big throws in that game. Ones that, like, again, I think a quarterback who of the talent or a player that we're talking about being in the first round of the NFL draft should make. You should not miss wide open wide receivers running down the sideline that would have, in essence, capped the game off earlier than they ended up capping the game off to win that one with the multiple picks at the end of the game. So I think, probably makes sense for him to come back next year and then maybe continue to progress. Like, I'm not out on Arch Manning, but I don't know that his value is bouncing back to at least what it was before the season and before he started a game for Texas.
With Texas, are they in the playoff here? Is Arch Manning going to get a chance to continue to show what he can do? Are they in? Do they get that last spot?
I really don't know because, I mean, right now you're going to get not likely. Ole Miss and Georgia are in, regardless of what happens at this point. I think that they're in. Alabama's likely in as well, right? So that's at least 3 teams. I think Texas A&M's got to be in. I get that they just lost, but it's 1 loss on the season. So now you're talking about 4 teams. I think it's going to come down now to probably Texas, OU, Vandy. If Vandy wins today, should be in the discussion. But the thing with Texas is they beat Vanderbilt and they beat Oklahoma. So I think if they put a 5th SEC team in, it's got to be Texas. I don't know how you put Oklahoma or Vanderbilt in because, again, I get Oklahoma's probably the most impressive win is that they beat Alabama right at home. And if Alabama wins the SEC championship, I think you can make an argument that that Oklahoma beat a better team than Texas did, even though Alabama had a loss coming into that one. Texas A&M being undefeated, you beat the SEC champs. So I think if they're going to put a 15 minutes, it's going to come down to a battle between Texas and OU because I just don't think Vanderbilt is going to have that final, however you want to put it, trump card. But I do think what also might help Oklahoma as well, assuming they win today. They got LSU tonight, right? Or this afternoon. Yep. If they win, they only have 2 losses overall. Texas is sitting there with 3. And I get Sark's argument last night about, we scheduled Ohio State. Okay, maybe don't lose to Florida, brother. I'm sorry, but you can't go away with that one. The Mississippi State, the Kentucky games, I don't know who I would vote for. I honestly, I think I would vote Oklahoma. We do top 25s for C2C Live every Wednesday. I've had Oklahoma fairly consistently ranked ahead of Texas all season. I think if Oklahoma beats LSU today, I think I'd probably still keep it. There's no reason to drop Oklahoma. There's just not, unless they lose. So for me, I get you beat Texas A&M, but again, Oklahoma beat likely the SEC champions in Alabama. I'm keeping Oklahoma in Texas. You can watch the Sooners at home here in a couple weeks play at the playoff in your spot.
So I feel like having the win. So Texas is at 16 right now. Texas A&M is at 3. I could see the committee being like, well, they beat the number 3 team in the country. Now we got to jump them up higher. Utah won. Utah is ranked 13. I think Utah gets jumped by Texas. Yeah. I think if it came down to Texas versus Utah, the committee will put Texas in. So now you got them jumping up to 13 potentially. I mean, Utah wins. Do you have to move them down for a win? Like, I think that's the cutoff line that I'm looking at right now. But then you have Vandy at 14 versus Tennessee at 19. If Vandy wins over the number 19 team in the country, how do you justify not moving them up? So I think this is going to be a really interesting day.
Yeah. It is. I think the team that ends up actually being in the discussion, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. What I was gonna say is I actually think the team that is going to be interesting in the discussion is probably Notre Dame. In what their season ends up looking like and how they value them against some of these other teams. Because Miami, I don't know that Miami gets in because they won't be playing in the ACC championship game, but whoever the ACC champion is going to get in, right? So like that, Miami's probably in the top 12 rankings holding that spot for the ACC champion. Notre Dame, I think, is going to be. So the other one that could be in the discussion is BYU. Because I don't, if BYU wins today, I think if they win, Texas Tech wins, those two will play each other in the Big 12 championship. I don't think we've heard, at least from last year, we only have one year of this, right? But the committee said last year they're not going to penalize teams for losing in that playing the extra game. So then if they don't, BYU should still technically be in. So I just don't know who Texas jumps because Utah's technically not in right now. They're at that 13 spot. I don't know that they would get in. Again, I think Miami right now, if you look at the top 12 rankings, is kind of holding this spot, I think, for the ACC champion and whoever that's going to be. So I think Texas is really, and Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma's in right now. So again, I just don't think Texas jumps Oklahoma. So I really think like the 12 we're seeing right now could be, at the end of the day, if all those teams that are playing each other right now, or not playing each other, none of those teams are actually playing each other. If all the teams right now in the top 12 win out, I think they make it in. And then that 12 spot just goes to whoever the ACC champion is, which I think is going to be your Pitt Panthers, Austin Nace, if you're watching. Called it on Wednesday. I think it's going to happen. Making it to the ACC championship and winning.
Okay. Heisman Heinzel. Does he make it? He makes it to New York if they win that? He should start the campaign. All right. So we move to another SEC matchup, the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss handles Mississippi State 38-19. Trinidad Chambliss, another ho-hum day at the office, 359 yards passing, 4 touchdowns through the air. We'll start, though, on the other side of this with Kamario Taylor. You remember the recruiting team here. You have had eyes on Taylor for a while now. He gets the start, 20 carries, 173 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground, which is a big part of Kamario Taylor's game. What were your thoughts on Taylor in this one?
Yeah, I thought he looked good. So we were talking before the show. I watched a lot of the first half. I missed the third quarter in this one, but I did get to watch the end of the game. He did exactly what I think we talked about him in the freshman guide. Like, he is an explosive rusher. We thought he was going to be a very good fit for this team. And I'll give props to Austin Nace and Matt Powell, a big wide receiver guy, 2 of the members on the recruiting team, because we kind of talked about, I thought big Luke Kromenhoek fan who went here in the offseason. And I was like, well, he kind of does the same thing. I think he could possibly be that for Mississippi State. But they said, hey, we think Kamario Taylor's better. He's the better athlete. And we think if he gets a chance, this is what we're going to see out of him. And they were right. He was phenomenal running the ball. And I actually don't think he was horrible passing the ball. I mean, the stats aren't great with the 15 of 31, 178 yards and an interception. They were playing what I still think is a pretty decent Ole Miss defense. So I think if he continues to improve as a passer, Kamario Taylor could be a very good, not just CFF asset, but again, one of those guys, because of the athlete that he is, that maybe starts to push in a couple years as an interesting NFL player. I know that was kind of, again, one of the things that we mentioned in the freshman supplemental guide last year was just kind of like he needed to make some improvements as a passer. But I thought he was exactly he was who we thought he was. And he was very good against an Ole Miss team that he probably should have not looked that good against.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see next year with him. Presumably, we'll get that job over Cromanhoke. Cromanhoke is there. Mario Taylor getting the number 2 this year. And Blake Shapen will be gone. We'll move back, though, to Ole Miss. Ole Miss, number 7. They are 11-1, one loss in this. Obviously not in the SEC championship. We're presuming that they are in. We are counting them as one of the teams who are going to be in, but we don't know who's going to be coaching them. We still have yet to hear where Lane Kiffin is going to be. If Lane Kiffin leaves, Ole Miss is still in, right? You can't justify taking them out.
No, I think Ole Miss is in. I heard them having this discussion on ESPN yesterday, and like, I just don't care if you lose your coach. How can you punish a team that has done what they've done, even if Lane Kiffin leaves for LSU? And I think it would be stupid on Ole Miss's part as well, because I've heard, the stories like, well, if Ole Miss says he's leaving, they're not going to let him coach. Like, why? You're only hurting yourself in doing that. Again, I don't know that Ole Miss is good enough to win a national championship. I do think they're good enough to win at least a game, maybe 2. I mean, again, you never know. I don't think anybody said going into last year after the loss to that team up north that Ohio State was going to be the team that won a national championship. You couldn't get hot. You could go on a run. I mean, again, you talked about what Trinidad has done. What Lane Kiffin has done with this kid from Ferris State has been extremely impressive. I think you would be doing almost an extreme disservice if you told him he cannot coach this team in the playoffs. And honestly, I think it would make more sense to do that because you're hurting. If the rumors are true and it's between them and LSU, you're actually hurting LSU more by letting him stay and coach through the playoffs, because that's just longer and longer he's taking to get to LSU to fully start putting his staff together, finishing out that recruiting class and everything else. So in my opinion, it makes just more sense to keep him at Ole Miss throughout the playoff run.
I would tend to agree with you, but I also understand that there's a lot of stuff that goes into the off season. And if you are Ole Miss, do you want a lame duck coach there? How do you handle recruiting? How do you handle the transfer portal? Because if they're in the playoff, the portal will be open by the time their games are playing. I think there's a lot of factors there, but I agree with you. I don't see any way that you could keep them out of the playoffs at 11-1 in the SEC. Granted, they had a little bit of an easier schedule than some other members of the SEC, but they still did it. Still 11-1, 7-1. I think they got to be in. We'll stay in the SEC here. Georgia, number 4, also at 11-1, 16-9 over Georgia Tech in the good old fashioned hate rivalry, or good clean hate, good clean fashioned hate, good old fashioned hate. One of those two. This game kind of ugly and gross, and I did not particularly enjoy watching this one. Gunnar Stockton, 11 of 21 for 70 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Haynes King, a little bit better, not a ton better though. 19 of 27, 181, a pick, and only 39 yards rushing on the ground. Georgia really said Haynes King is not going to beat us in this one.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that they had to do. And I think, Kirby Smart, I've talked about him in recent shows and everything as being, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in the game. I think he deserves the respect that he gets for what he's done, not just for the back-to-back national championships, but everything he's done for Georgia really since taking over. And yeah, I mean, he's a very smart guy. He knows if I go in there and I can limit Haynes King on the ground, he's not going to beat me passing the ball. And they were able to limit that as well. The interesting thing is it seems like Brent Key on the other side was like, well, if I can limit Georgia running the ball a little bit, I can do the same thing. Now, Nate Frazier was able to get a couple decent runs in there, but Gunnar Stockton was not that dude, and was not really able to kind of lead this team. It was, as you mentioned, a very ugly game, not one of the fun ones to watch. And I think that's why if Georgia loses the SEC championship and ends up finishing as the 5 seed, they probably won't lose, but if I'm the G5 team, I think I'm actually feeling pretty good about maybe being that Kingslayer and taking out a P4 team, because Georgia is a very beatable team. I really, truly think this is the first time in a while. Now, don't get me wrong, Georgia fans. I think still one of the best teams in the SEC, and Kirby Smart probably will not let you lose to a G5 team because he's such a good coach. But I do think they are a team that is beatable. I think a lot of teams actually are very beatable in the playoffs right now, and just in college football. I think we are seeing a massive shift in the college football game.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I mean, Ohio State looks like the most dominant team this year. Indiana looks very good too. I hesitate to put them in the same category as Ohio State, even though they're both undefeated. But outside of those two teams, I don't really think there's anybody that's unbeatable. The Cover 3 does the "Who don't you want to see in the playoffs" this year, and I don't know that there's any team that I'm like, other than Ohio State, that I'm like, I really do not want to see this team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I still think Ohio State is beatable, but we'll see. I do think that, taking my, I think, bias out of it right now, just because of their offense, are probably the top team currently in the playoffs right now. But I don't think Alabama is far off from them. Their biggest problem is also their rushing game. Like, you don't have to worry about that. So that's kind of their big Achilles heel currently.
Yep. You mentioned the G5 winner, whoever that ends up being. North Texas played as well, and they made a strong case for themselves at 11-1 to be that team. They win over Temple 52-25. And John Lobb in the chat, hi John, says, I'm thankful for Caleb Hawkins this year. I think a lot of people are. He goes 186 and 4 touchdowns. Just a classic Caleb Hawkins performance for you in the finals. He has a monster game. And Mestamaker also 366 and 3. Wyatt Young, 6 catches, 127 yards, no touchdowns, but it's still a solid performance out of those guys if you needed them in your championship.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Hawkins has just been an absolute stud. I picked him up in a couple of my leagues, like probably around week 3, actually, off the waiver wire. And in one of them, I know, Colin, we're in that same league together, the League of Record. He has taken me to a championship game. Him and Wyatt Young, who actually had a pretty decent day as well, ended up not getting in the end zone, which I think would have made his day bigger, but he was 6 for 127. Both those guys have been amazing. Wyatt Young, I think, might be out of eligibility. I'm not sure. I think he's a senior. No, he's a sophomore. So I'll be very curious to see what this team looks like next year, because obviously Caleb Hawkins, true freshman, Drew Mestamaker, I think is a redshirt freshman or a sophomore. Obviously his first game was last year, since, all the talk about him not playing a game in high school. What does UNT look like with, now we know, Eric Morris, leaving and going to Oklahoma State? Do they follow him there? And if they do, does it look this good? Because these are 3 guys who could legitimately be league winners next year as well. But we just kind of don't know what this is going to look like. But yeah, props to UNT. And again, I just said it with Georgia. If UNT ends up being that G5 team, like, sure, you're going to bet Georgia is going to win that game. But UNT, they're a fun team to watch. Maybe, just maybe, they can pull off the massive upset.
High-flying offense there. We also had Arizona State play. That game was just boring. I mean, Jeff Sims, we saw bad Jeff Sims again. That sucks for anybody who was starting Raleek Brown. But I don't think there's too much we need to get into on that. So let's dive into the rankings this week. If you have your start-sit questions, if you were in the championship, like we know you guys are, because you're Campus Canton subscribers or Campus Canton watchers, get those start-sit questions in the chat. We'll be answering them throughout the show. We'll get to all of them. We'll start with the quarterbacks here this week. Familiar names at the top. Colton Joseph, quarterback at Old Dominion, going up against Georgia State. We got Byron Brown, number 2. I feel like Colton Joseph, Byron Brown have been flipping back and forth pretty much all season. He gets Rice this week. Brad Jackson, my boy at Texas State, going up against South Alabama. Diego Pavia at number 4 against Tennessee. Alonzo Barnett number 5 against Coastal Carolina. Jake Retzloff at number 6 versus Charlotte. Carlos Del Rio Wilson at number 7 versus Georgia Southern. Brendan Sorsby at 8 versus BYU. Owen McCown at 9 against Army. Connor Wigman at 10 versus Baylor. Anthony Calandria 11 against Nevada. Number 12, Jaden Mayava against UCLA. Taylon Green versus Missouri this week at 13. 14, Kevin Jennings versus Cal. And rounding out the top 15, we have Sawyer Robertson against Houston. Just a reminder, these rankings are players who have not played yet. So we've had a lot of games so far this week, a lot of games yesterday. So there are players, obviously, that have been removed from the rankings. So if you're wondering why you don't see Drew Mestemaker, because he already played. But Matt, is there anything here that stands out to you this week?
Yeah, I mean, again, you mentioned it. A lot of the players, or the guys, for instance, like Drew Mestemaker, who would have been higher up on this list or on this list. Connor Wigman's one that worries me a little bit. Baylor, I mean, I think I hate saying quit watch, but man, they've kind of been just bad here with Dave Aranda. But I still do worry about Wigman a little bit here going up against what I still think is a decent Baylor defense, but it is a big game for them. I mean, Alonzo Barnett, I think, is going to have a massive day today against Coastal Carolina. So very interesting top 15. Don't necessarily disagree with them. Like, I still think Connor Wigman's in the top 15. I personally would hesitate to put him there in the top 10, but he's been pretty decent this year for a guy who ended up transferring down and has worked out. Texas A&M could have used him a little bit last night once Marcel Reed got hurt, because Miles O'Neal didn't look like he was it.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike. Miles O'Neal. Don't think he's going to be the guy at A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Wigman at 10 surprises me a little bit, but like you mentioned, that Baylor defense has not been very good. They've been a sieve all year, even though that's Dave Aranda's side of the ball. But they are bringing Dave Aranda back this year. I think something that stands out to me here, Kevin Jennings going up against Cal in a must-win game for SMU. I would look for him to have a nice day today. I think Kevin Jennings is going to get it done. I know Cal just fired their coach, Justin Wilcox. He, controlled the defensive side of the ball over there too. What is that Cal defense going to look like? You talk about quit watch. I'll be interested to watch and see how they respond. But I think Kevin Jennings at 14, if I had him in Wigman, I would prefer Jennings personally.
Yeah. I'm with you 100% on that. I think Kevin Jennings, again, going up against a Cal team who just fired their head coach, I would love Cal to win today because, again, I picked Pitt to make it to the ACC championship game, but for that to happen, SMU has to lose. But I just don't see how Kevin Jennings has a bad game today.
Yeah. Yep. All right, I think the rest of this is pretty chalky here, so I don't think there's too many other takeaways on this one. But in the next group, 16 through 30 here, we have a couple interesting names. We have Bear Bachmeier at 16 against UCF, Caden Creel at 17 versus Western Kentucky, Nick Minicucci going up against UTEP at 18. We got 19, Caden Veltkamp versus East Carolina, Damon Williams at 20 versus Oregon in a big matchup. Lunch Winfield at 21 versus UL Monroe, Cale Helms versus Charlotte at 22, 23 CJ Bailey versus North Carolina, 24 Bishop State versus Texas, Bishop Davenport versus Texas State, 25 Canton Hauser against Florida Atlantic, 26 Pitt, 27 Amari Odom versus Liberty, 28 Darian Mensah versus Wake, 29 Roman Gagliano versus New Mexico State. And again, just a reminder, there's a lot of players that are out of these rankings because they've already played. I wouldn't expect to see Roman Gagliano in too many starting lineups this week. But out of the rest of the group here, Matt, who do you feel best about this week out of this group?
There's probably two of them and two guys that one of them I know you've definitely been starting most of your season. The other one, I don't know if you have. That's Bear Bachmeier and Damon Williams. You've started Damon if you've rostered him. He's been absolutely on fire. And I get the ranking down here at 20 with Oregon. Tough matchup. I think they're playing at home. So at least Oregon is having to come to Husky Stadium. And I'm really hoping and that we see the Damon Williams we've seen all year and not the one that we saw against Michigan and Ohio State, which is probably the fear here, especially you starting Damon Williams in a championship game for you, that you don't see that one. I have faith that he's going to be really good today. And then Barrett Bachmeier going up against UCF. Again, he's been getting better and better every single week. I've been fairly impressed with what I've seen at him. Again, as a true freshman, a guy we didn't expect to be starting, goes into BYU, transfers to BYU, ends up becoming the starting quarterback there. And I think he's just improved throughout the season, can run the ball, has been decent as a passer, going up against a UCF team that he should definitely, and BYU should definitely beat, knowing they have everything in front of them. They win this game, they're in the Big 12 championship. So I expect him to have a big day as well here against the UCF Golden Knights.
Yeah, that's a big game for them. I mean, I think that they have to really show out in this one. They're at number 11 right now. They only have one loss, but like we talked about to open the show, I think BYU is kind of still on the bubble, especially with all these SEC teams that they're hanging around as well in the standings. A couple of them have some big wins. We saw Texas, who's ranked below them. They got a big win. So that'll be interesting to see how the committee treats BYU, but I think they got to come out and just absolutely crush UCF. And if they do, look for a big day from Bear Bachmeier. When you mentioned Damon Williams, and I think something that is really interesting is Nate in our CFF chat mentioned a split for Damon Williams, where he's significantly better in night games. I thought that was really interesting. This game is at 3:30 Eastern time, which puts it at 12:30 Pacific time, right? I think so. But that's a day game. So I think that is very interesting to keep an eye on. Could be a coincidence, might not be, but this would be a tough matchup for Damon. We hit a question in the chat.
Yeah, I mean,
here.
Look, I actually don't know. Are they the night game tonight?
No, they play at 3:30 Eastern time.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
I got you. All right, my bad. Yeah, I wasn't sure if they played the night game or not. So to the question.
Yeah, we got a question in the chat here though. Thoughts on Baron Morton today? They play West Virginia, and I don't think there's a scenario where they're not in the Big 12 championship. I'm pretty sure they're in. But
I think if they lose, they're out.
Are they? Who would be ahead of BYU? Would be in. And then what? Utah has 2 losses.
I can't remember if they're in or if it was BYU for sure. Let's see here. Texas Tech. I'm trying to remember because I was watching them talk about the scenarios last night. So Texas Tech, yeah, because they have the 1 loss in conference, I think. Well, no, I think they're probably in now. No, yeah, they're probably in because they beat Utah, right? They beat Utah earlier in the year, so I think they would be in regardless, even if they lose. Maybe it was BYU if they lose, because technically Arizona State had a chance to make it into the Big 12 championship game last night, but they had to win. I think it was BYU had to lose. I think Utah needed Arizona State and BYU to lose to get in. So they got part of that in ASU. So yeah, you're correct. Texas Tech would be in regardless.
Yeah, if Texas Tech's in regardless, I don't want to say they're going to like pull Morton or they're going to like take their foot off the gas. Like I still expect Texas Tech to win this game, but how on the throttle are they going to be in this one? Like Baron Morton gets banged up all the time. I could see them, a little bit in the second half. I don't know. I don't trust Baron Morton today. Our rankings don't either. We pulled, I think it was probably about 9 or 10 quarterbacks out of these rankings because they had already played. So you really at Roman Gagliano, you're looking at like right around QB 40. Baron Morton was lower than that in our projections. So I do not trust Baron Morton this week, even in what's a pretty soft matchup overall.
I mean, we have him projected at 24 points, but again, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, we have him projected at 24 points, and I don't disagree with what Colin's saying. I think especially if Texas Tech gets up early, which they likely will against a bad West Virginia team, I don't know that they'll pull him, but they probably will take the foot off the gas a little bit, maybe just because they don't want him to get injured. Because again, they don't really have a decent backup behind him. It's Mitch Griffiths. So like they cannot afford to lose him for the Big 12 championship game. And again, a team that's likely going to be a top 4 seed going into the playoffs. They have everything in front of them. There's really no reason to really risk him today against West Virginia. So I would be hesitant to start him and expect a big day from him, even though, again, as Colin mentioned, a very soft matchup.
Yeah. Speaking of soft matchups, thank you, Meth Labs. Hoping that I take down Chris K in the finals of R1 League. Appreciate that, Meth Labs. And he says, as a Penn State guy, what do I think of the Rutgers crew? I would probably be willing to start them. I don't think they'll have good games. This Penn State defense is still solid, but it's not anybody that you necessarily need to be scared of. Like, you probably have better options than Raymond, Strong, and Duff. But if you are questioning it, you don't feel like you do, I think you're going to get like 12 to 15 points out of those guys.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. Looking at the rest of this list here, I think there's a couple of, I don't want to say, there's a couple of new names that stand out to me on this list. Amari Odom at Kennesaw State versus Liberty and Bishop Davenport are not guys who are typically in our rankings. Again, a lot of this having to do with so many other players having played already. But Amari Odom is coming off of that huge game last week, 385 or 387 yards, 5 touchdowns, added 32 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Is this a guy? I mean, this is probably somebody who's available on waivers. If you had a guy like Joey Fagnano for UConn who's not playing this week, you were relying on him. I think you could do a lot worse than Amari Odom. I'm interested.
Yeah, I would be interested to see if he's able to keep this up. I was actually trying to pull up what he's done most of the season. He's not a guy that I've paid a ton of attention to. Obviously, he had a massive game. Was it last week with 58 points? He's been a little bit inconsistent, but overall, fairly good. He's sitting right now as like the 70th ranked quarterback over. He's averaging 24.8 points a game, and you are not wrong. Again, it's kind of hard to know exactly what this rostership number looks like because this is not just C2C leagues, but he's rostered at 5%, which I imagine is probably more CFF leagues than anything else. So most of your C2C leagues, he is, if you have an unlimited waiver league, or if you somehow still have one waiver pickup left, I imagine you've got to have a guy on your team that's worth cutting at this point. I don't think it's a bad thing to maybe just grab him and see what happens going into the offseason. Everything, again, he's a guy that you could easily then cut at some point if you don't think he's going to be able to continue to produce what he has this year, and end up either drafting a guy in the supplemental draft or using him as your first drop to pick up a waiver claim next year.
Yeah, and he's like you said, young guy, so he's got a couple years left. There's not a ton else that stands out to me on this list here. Bishop Davenport surprises me. He's a little bit that high. Like I mentioned, it's a newer name here. Probably not a guy I'm rolling out there, even if I, like I said, was relying on Joey Fagnano and he's not out there for me this week. But still probably not trusting him in that one. There's a lot of other options on this in this matchup that I would trust more.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I 1,000% agree.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it there for QBs. Let's dive into the running backs this week. And this one, still some players who had played already, but not as dramatic as quarterbacks. I trust a lot of these guys in the top group here. We got Jeremiah
Yeah.
Love going up against Stanford. He's been a stud all year. Number one, no surprise. Cam Cook, your boy, Jacksonville State going up against Western Kentucky at number two. Ahmad Hardy at 3 against Arkansas. Jordan Marshall at 4 against Ohio State. Deshaun Bishop at 5 versus Vanderbilt. Evan Dickens at 6 versus Kennesaw State. LJ Martin versus UCF at 7. Chip Trainum at Central Michigan, number 8. Dominic Richardson, number 9 for Tulsa, going up against UAB. Number 10, Kendrick Raphael versus SMU. Lincoln Pear at number 11 versus South Alabama. Kewan Brown at 12 versus Kentucky. And this is one to keep an eye on because I have seen some rumblings about some injuries here. So we're going to want to check in on Brown throughout the day, see if he's going to go. Number 13, we have Will Henderson versus Army. 14, Jamari Taylor against Virginia Tech. And 15, Shoeless Joe Jackson versus Colorado. What stands out to you the most here out of this group at the top?
I mean, how about Shoeless Joe Jackson coming out of the cornfield? Probably actually fairly accurate. Oh, they're at home at Kansas State. Getting Colorado should be very good. No, I mean the top really three. I mean, if you have Jeremiah Love, Cam Cook, my guy Ahmad Hardy, for those of you the initiated, for those of you who know, been a big supporter of that guy, especially when he transferred to Missouri. You are likely in your championship, or at least you made it to the playoffs, just with how good Jeremiah Love and Cam Cook have been. Jeremiah Love, I think, has been on a run too with trying to get himself in the Heisman race with the way he's been running the ball as of late. And again, getting a Stanford team. I think Notre Dame will allow him to run wild again today because I do think he's getting himself in the discussion or pushing for that. So if you have Jeremiah Love today, you should hopefully be expecting a massive game. Same from Cam Cook. LJ Martin is the interesting one to me as well there at 7, going up against a UCF team again that he should put up some decent points against. So not only just rushing the ball, but he's had a decent time receiving the ball as well, or being a receiver out of the backfield. He's another guy that I think you can feel a lot better about playing this week after coming off that shoulder injury for a couple weeks. And he's kind of been okay, getting decent amount of yards and at least a touchdown to kind of save your day. But I think this could be the one that he finally kind of breaks out again into what he was doing earlier in the year.
Yeah, and like you said, this is a big game or like we talked about earlier, this is a big game for BYU. I think they have to show out. So I think LJ Martin coming off that monster game last week, we could see another big game for him. And actually, I am just seeing as of 15 minutes ago, Kewan Brown is out. Kewan Brown is not playing today. Definitely will want to get him out of your lineup if you had him. Duke Watson is also out. They're going to be relying on Brandon Jennings, who's like a walk-on red shirt there. He's a freshman. So
yeah,
gotta worry about your Louisiana Cardinal or your Louisville Cardinal options in this one here, with all the news of all these injuries. I don't think there's anybody that I'm trusting you in that one.
No, yeah. With Brown out, I would pivot to somebody else, whether it's another player in the top 15. Hopefully you have them, or as well, I'm sure about to show the 16 through 30, one of those players. Again, if you're sitting there with a question or you're not sure, just finding out the news about Brown, post in the chat your other options. I would definitely maybe drop him or swap in an RB into that position and look to maybe jump someone up into the flex spot if you had an RB in the flex spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that with him potentially being out, you're going to have to look to pivot. A guy that I do really like this week, Will Henderson, at 13. He's had a really strong finish to the season here. Not sure what the status of Robert Henry is, but I'm not entirely sure it matters. I think Henderson is really taken over the backfield here in this one. So he's a guy that I would roll out there if, I had Kewan Brown. And you got to find a replacement in your lineup.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We have a question in the chat from Nathan Holmes. A bunch of so-so guys to choose from for the RB spots this week. Have to pick two from Jordan Marshall, Coleman, presumably Jonah Coleman, King Miller, Darius Taylor, and Cobb. I'm going to assume is Jeremiah Cobb for Auburn. Picking two from here. Matt, who you got?
Okay, so I have a bunch of guys: Jordan Marshall, Coleman, Miller. Man, that's a very interesting list. All right, so I mean, obviously, based at least on our rankings, I think you've got to probably go with Jordan Marshall as least one of them. Which Coleman is that? Do we know?
We don't. I would assume Jonah Coleman since we're talking running backs.
Okay, and we're assuming King Miller.
I would think so.
Okay. Yeah, guys. If you could, the first name sometimes on these would be there's a lot of play. I mean, I for me a lot of players. I mean, Jordan Marshall. See, I don't know. We could have a discussion about Jordan Marshall. I don't think Ohio State has. I think Ohio State's been pretty decent against teams on the ground this year. And I think like in this game, they're probably going to try and force Bryce Underwood to beat them because I don't know that they think that he probably can, especially with those receiving weapons and how good that secondary has been. So I'm very curious as to what Jordan Marshall will do today. Again, I know he's ranked as our highest one. Jeremiah Cobb going up against Alabama, I don't feel great about. I mean, Darius Taylor going up against Wisconsin is a good matchup. He's been kind of banged up most of the year, though. So I would probably lean. Which Coleman do we think this is again? I'm sorry.
I think I would say Jonah. That's my guess.
Jonah Coleman, and he's getting Oregon. Man, that's tough. King Miller, I would probably play. I think he's got the best matchup right now going up against UCLA. He's likely going to get you a decent amount of points. Again, USC technically still battling to get into the Big Ten championship game. You know, they need Ohio State and I believe Oregon to lose for that to happen. And it's possible. Washington could upset Oregon. And again, we've seen over the past 4 years, Michigan has beat Ohio State. So that's possible as well. So I definitely think King Miller is in one of them. I mean, I would probably lean Darius Taylor. Again, I know Jordan Marshall's ranked fairly high for us in our rankings, and we do have him projected for a lot of points. But I really do think, thank you, Nathan. Okay, so you were right on call it. And it is Jonah and King. King for sure is in for me, Nathan. And then I think Marshall has the safer floor because I do think Michigan, for the most part, will be in this game. But I would probably lean Darius Taylor. Colin, what do you think about that second spot?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think King Miller is the one out of this list that I feel the best about. He's not on this list here, but I do feel the better about him than Jordan Marshall. We have at number 4. I understand having Jordan Marshall that high. He's been really good all season. Like you mentioned, I worry about him going up against Ohio State. I worry about Michigan being able to move the ball on them, and we'll pick this game later. We can get into that more at that point, but I would find it hard to trust him. I think I would. I know Jonah Coleman is in. He's playing today, expected to start. But he's been banged up.
Yeah.
Going up against Oregon, an Oregon team that needs to win. I think Coleman probably gives you the safer floor between him and Darius Taylor, given Darius Taylor's injury concerns. But I think I would agree with you. I would probably lean Taylor as well for that second spot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. King's in, and I'm sure we're about to get to the wide receivers, but just wanted to point this out before we get there, and we can say this again. It has been assured by Ryan Day, both Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are full goes for today. So be ready to play both of them. I expect them to both be heavily targeted in this game. Again, a big game for Ryan Day. I understand they're undefeated, but he wants to beat Michigan. Said that they were full go in practice all week, and they are full go today for the game against that team up north.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout out too. We'll add that one to the injury note for later. But if you have Tate, if you have Smith, you're rolling them out there, even in maybe what might be a tougher matchup. But moving on to RBs 16 through 30. We have Wayne Knight going up against Coastal Carolina at 16, Cameron Dickey at 17 versus West Virginia, Jaden Baugh at 18 versus Florida State, Jakail Middlebrook going up against New Mexico State at 19, Kentrell Bullock at 20 versus Texas State, Mark Fletcher 21 versus Pittsburgh, Carson Hansen 22 versus Oklahoma State, Dallin Smothers at 23 versus North Carolina, Caleb Komalafe at 24 going against Illinois, London Montgomery 25 versus Florida Atlantic, Anthony Hankerson, number 26 versus Washington State, Mike Washington versus Missouri at 27, Kewan Owens at 28 versus Sam Houston State, Dean Connors 29 versus Baylor, and rounding out the top 30, Adam Randall versus South Carolina. King Miller not on this list either. Would you slot him in anywhere, or how do you feel about this list?
Yeah. I think this list is good. I really think I would probably play him over Adam Randall. And Dean Connors is questionable, and I actually think Dean Connors could have a decent day here against Baylor. But I would definitely have King Miller up in this list and at least ahead of Adam Randall there at 30. I'd imagine. And I could probably actually just pull this up. We've talked about this before when Austin and I have done the show. Like, just because a player isn't on this list doesn't mean that they are not projected to do well. A lot of times these guys are separated by a very thin margin, which is also kind of just the way things are in fantasy football as well. So just looking at Adam Randall right now, we have him projected for 15 points. King Miller, 13.61. So there's a 2-point drop pretty much in that one, down from 30. Again, it's 38 in our rankings right now. But again, that's because players have already played throughout the week. We have them at 30 here, as Colin talked about at the beginning of the show. And King Miller down there at 62. So still, not even a full 2-point difference in between those two, but I would feel more comfortable playing King Miller than I would Adam Randall. Outside of that, I think Cameron Dickey could be in for a really big day today. Again, we just talked about with the Baron Morton question. I wonder if they don't have him doing a lot in this one, or Baron Morton specifically, and maybe leaning more on Cameron Dickey against a West Virginia team they should beat pretty easily. And Mark Fletcher as well. Me and Austin have talked about that recently on Pitt. They do have statistically a very highly ranked defense against the run, but they are not quite as good as the stats say. They have not played a ton of teams that can run the ball very decent. I expect Carson Beck to struggle in this one, actually. Pitt has a very good pass defense, so I wonder if they lean a little bit heavier on Mark Fletcher today.
Yeah, I was kind of watching, keeping an eye on Mark Fletcher on this list here as well. I know Gerard Pringle had gotten some buzz over the last couple of weeks, but Fletcher last week kind of seemed to take this backfield back now that Fletcher's back and healthy. You mentioned you think Beck could struggle. If you think he struggles, are you on Mark Fletcher this week?
Yeah. I think Fletcher, again, I think he's fairly accurately rated here at 21. Like, I'm not going to tell you Mark Fletcher's going to go out there and have like a 30-point game. But I do think that Mark Fletcher could be a guy they lean on a little bit more. Pitt, I think rush defense is much more beatable than their pass defenses. Again, last I looked, they were like a top 15 pass defense, and Carson Beck is not a guy who, he just, in my opinion, makes bad decisions. And we've seen that kind of play out throughout times this year. It's kind of what's knocked Miami likely out of the playoff race this year. I think that if he struggles there, they'll lean heavier on Mark Fletcher, and he could have a good game. Again, I think the 21 part is probably ranked fairly. I don't know exactly where he's projected for us. I would imagine somewhere in like the 15 to 18 point range. And I think that's a very fair place to rank him and expect him to kind of finish and maybe a little bit more. 15.5. I was just trying to pull it up. I think he could get a little bit more than that if he gets a couple touchdowns. So I do like the play today of Mark Fletcher because I think Beck will struggle.
I agree with that one. We mentioned here in the chat, wonder if Tech knows they have the running backs back, how they want them, and they let Morton settle in and throw a bunch. Only reason he was worried about Dickey versus some other guys. And I know you called it out, but I do like Dickey this week. But in the CFF Pulse of the Nation article, Nate Marquise writes, he mentioned a different concern for Dickey. He mentioned potential touchdown vulture Jacob Rodriguez. We saw the linebacker play some running back in one of the games earlier this season. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Got a goal line carry. They seem to be on a crusade to get him the Heisman. So will they pull Dickey and put Jacob Rodriguez in around the goal line again this week? If they get up big, I could see it. So I totally understand the concern on that one. I still think I trust Dickey though this week. I still think he's going to have a big week versus West Virginia. Seems like the type of matchup where he goes for like 100 and a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I get what you're saying on Jacob Rodriguez, and you're not wrong. I think they're trying to get him. I mentioned that with Jeremiah Love earlier. I think they're trying to get him at least to the ceremony in the discussion, and to do that, getting him some offensive touchdowns is going to help him out. But if Dickey breaks a big one and he gets you like a 30 or 40-yard touchdown run, Jacob Rodriguez can't vulture him. And I still think that Dickey ends up having a big day, because I do think that they will I have no doubt that they're going to let Borton throw the ball for a little bit. But that offensive line has struggled, and why West Virginia is not like, kingmakers there on the defensive line, they can't afford for Morton to get hurt. So I just think that they will play a little bit more of a conservative game in this one again, because right now they have everything in front of them, including knowing they can lose this game today and still make the Big 12 championship. So there's no reason to really force the issue with anybody. I think that they lean a little bit heavier on the run game. I still expect Dickey to have a fairly good game.
Agreed. And we had somebody else in the chat here, MethLab, saying, sorry if I missed it, but what's the concern with King Miller today? Is Wayman back? Wayman Jordan was practicing in pads this week, so it's hard to say if he'll be back, how much run he'll get. I know USC needs to win this game, and needs to win it in a convincing fashion. I still don't think they have a shot at the playoff, even if they do house UCLA, because of everything that's happened already so far with the way that Utah won and Texas won. So I don't think it necessarily matters. And that makes me think that even if Wayman Jordan is healthy, we'll still see a pretty fair split. And I still think King Miller will get his fair share of carries here this week. So I'm not overly concerned about King Miller, but yes, that is likely why our projections do not have him up here, is because Wayman Jordan is potentially back for this week.
Yeah, I mean, as Colin mentioned, they've had him listed as by RotorWire and a couple other sources that he has been back at practice in pads, full pads going. So that definitely is a concern. And as Colin mentioned, I do think they have, again, everything to play for right now, because I actually think they technically do have a shot to make the playoff. If Ohio State and Oregon lose, they'll make the Big Ten championship. And if they were to win the Big Ten championship, I think they probably get put in, as crazy as that is to sound. Now, again, the likelihood of that is, you probably have a better chance of getting struck by lightning at this point, because I just don't think Oregon and Ohio State lose, but there is still the possibility. So they have everything to play for today. And that's why I agree with Colin. Likely he's a little bit lower in the rankings, because they're just not sure how to project, what Wayman Jordan will contribute to this game.
Yeah. I think that's a tough projection. So I understand why that impacts Miller in our rankings, but it seems like we're both kind of on the same page there. We did get another question in the chat here, so we'll answer this one. We'll wrap up running backs, we'll take a break, and then on the other side of that, we'll do wide receivers and tight ends. But before we jump here, we got Damon Claiborne or Mark Fletcher, half-point PPR. Our rankings here have Fletcher ahead of Claiborne. Are you on that side as well?
Oh, man, I did just talk about how I expect Fletcher to actually have a good game here, because again, I don't think that they will rely heavily. They probably will try to rely heavily on, why did I just forget his name here? Carson Beck earlier on in the game. But again, I think that Pitt defense, at least specifically passing the ball, is going to be very good. Where I might actually lean Damon Claiborne, because you're not wrong, We do have him projected higher, but not by much. Right now, while there is a pretty decent split in the ranking perspective, we have Mark Fletcher projected at 15 and Damon Claiborne at 14, and specifically 15.5. So not much of a difference. Damon Claiborne is a player who will catch some passes. He doesn't necessarily get usually a ton of receiving yards with that, but will get a couple passes here where I don't think Fletcher will get a ton. So if you're going for a safe floor, I would go with Fletcher. If you need a little bit more upside here, Sante Silver, I would go with Damon Claiborne, because I actually think he's got the better matchup against Duke as well. I do think that he has a chance to have a much better day overall than Fletcher. So just depends on what you're looking for. I do think Fletcher has a safer floor, as likely scores a touchdown. I say get you probably somewhere between 50 and 100 yards to kind of make your day. But Claiborne, I think, could overall have the better day, but definitely not as safe a floor, higher ceiling for Claiborne.
Yeah, I think Claiborne has the softer matchup with Duke. And like you mentioned, he is involved more in the passing game. I think with this being half-point PPR, it is enough to make me stick with Mark Fletcher in our rankings over Claiborne. I think Claiborne has been he's been getting like a decent amount of volume this year, but he hasn't really been scoring you a ton of fantasy points. Robbie Ashford steals a lot of work on the ground. So that's something I would be a little bit worried about as well. So I think I trust our rankings. I will go with Mark Fletcher on this one. All right, that's going to wrap up the running backs here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get into wide receivers and tight ends on the other side. Keep dropping your start sit questions in the chat. We are here to help you win the championships this week for your CFF leagues. So drop the questions in the chat, and we'll do just that. We're gonna jump. We'll be right back.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there. Ludacris going in on the verse, cause I never been defeated and I won't stop now. Keep your hands up, get them in the sky for the homies that ain't making it, my folks locked down. I never went nowhere, what they saying, Luda's back. Blame it on that contour, the hood call it Luda-yak. And I'm on this foolish track, so I spit my foolish flow. All I do is win, 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 no matter what.
Life's a game, but it's not fair. I break the rules, so I don't care. So I keep doing my own thing. Walking tall against the rain. Victories within the mile. Almost there, don't give up now. Only thing that's on my mind is who's gonna run this town tonight.
I got calls calling, the y'all check was fall. Where's Ollie with them dough? I be ballin' like a good die pro. I be ballin' like my brother Mo. Check West, I ain't the mark. Joe, Steph West, stay with the pole. You go around and get pole. I got calls. Day and night, I toss and turn, I keep stressing my mind. I look for peace, but see I don't attain. What I need for keeps this silly game we play. Now look at this. Madness, the magnet keeps attracting me. I try to run, but see I'm not that fast. I think I'm first, but surely finish last. Cause day and night, the lonely stoner seems to.
We are back with the tailgate here for week 14 for your championship week. I'm Colin Decker. That's Matt Bruning, here to help you win your CFF championships. We went through quarterbacks and running backs already with the rankings. We're going to hit up wide receivers here. So drop your start sit questions in the chat. Let us help you make those tough decisions this week.
Yeah.
At wide receiver, number 1, familiar name, Jeremiah Smith, going up against Michigan, and he is confirmed full go. So we're firing him up like normal. We got Mekhi Lemon, number 2 versus UCLA. Eric McAllister, number 3 against Cincinnati. Easton Messer at 4 versus East Carolina. Amari Thomas at 5 versus Baylor. Denzel Boston versus Oregon at 6, who is also confirmed to be starting today. Bo Sparks at 7 versus South Alabama. Deuce Robinson at 8 versus Florida. Jackson Harris at 9 versus Wyoming. Jeremy Bernard 10 versus Auburn. 11, Joshua Cameron versus Houston. 12, Camden Brown versus Marshall. 13, Jacob DeJesus versus SMU. 14, Malachi Tony against Pittsburgh. And 15, Jordan Hudson versus California. Like we mentioned earlier when we did quarterbacks and running backs, these are the players who are playing today. Some players have been removed from the rankings, guys like Wyatt Young. So anybody on the screen has not played yet. Matt, looking at this list here, a lot of familiar names, but I think Amari Thomas in the top 5, a little bit of a surprise. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been having a very good day and some foreshadowing here. I believe he might be an underdog play for someone today as well, if I'm remembering correctly. But he's been really good, and I mean really good here in those last couple of weeks. Sure, only and you're gonna see why I'm saying only 18 points last week, but 21, 37, 22 as well here in some of his last couple of games. He's been having a really good year. He has kind of been the guy for Connor Wigman. I did mention earlier when we were talking about quarterbacks, we do have Connor Wigman ranked in the top 10 as well, which kind of correlates, I think, with why we have Amari Thomas up here at top 5. I could see them struggling a little bit today against what I still think is a decent Baylor defense. But I mean, I think at this point, with what Amari Thomas has done this year, he's just become a guy that you're going to set in your lineup and forget it. I mean, he's had 3 bad games so far this year. Rice, Colorado, and Arizona State. Outside of that, he's likely been a guy that's helped you get to where you are. And even in those games, he was still, if I'm remembering correctly, targeted fairly well in those games. So I'm all in on Amari Thomas. I think he's a guy that you should definitely have in your lineups today.
Agreed. I think he's in for a nice day today. And like you teased, he might show up later during some of the underdog plays here. At number 10, we have Jeremy Bernard. He is questionable today. Do you think he goes in the Iron Bowl? And if he does, if he suits up, are you trotting him out there?
I mean, I do think that he plays, and yes, I think you have to. Again, Alabama is not for sure in the SEC championship game. They are win and in, and they should beat Auburn. I think, you would feel a lot better about that if they were starting, say, Deuce Knight with what he did last week against Mercer. And from the Alabama side of things, knowing, hey, like, now that they've got this quarterback that looks interesting, like, we're definitely going to have to bring our A game. But I also think they probably sat him last week against Eastern Illinois because they know they didn't need him. Like, we want him in the Iron Bowl moving forward to the playoffs. So, again, it's something we'll watch. And if it's announced while we're doing this show, we will definitely, let you guys know. But at this point, if it's announced that he's playing, I'm starting him. I expect him to have a decent game here because Alabama is winning in. They have not necessarily confirmed or secured their spot in the SEC championship.
Agreed. Yeah. They are winning in, and I think you're right. They rested Jeremy Bernard last week in a cakewalk Eastern Illinois matchup where they didn't need him. They do need him today in this one. This game, the spread is at 5.5. It's a little tighter than you would think given their records. Uh, Auburn starting Ashton Daniels this week over Deuce Knight. But I do think Deuce Knight gives them a better chance to win. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I expect Alabama to need Jeremy Bernard here in this one. So I also would roll Jeremy Bernard out there. He's probable. So I'm firing him up.
Yeah.
Rest of the list here, a lot of familiar names. Malachi Toney against Pittsburgh. You highlighted a little bit here about a little earlier about the concerns with Carson Beck. Does that give you pause for Toney, or are you still trusting Toney this week?
It gives me some pause. Again, not just because of Carson Beck, but also the fact that, again, Pittsburgh does have a very good pass-rated defense, and I think that they will go into this knowing, again, that Pitt has everything to play for. Again, I don't remember if they play after SMU, and I think they need 2 teams to lose, actually, to get in the ACC championship. Maybe they only need the 1. I cannot remember. But they do still technically have everything to play for. They know they have to win to get into a possible shot at the ACC championship game. So I think that they're going to come in here and they're going to try and shut down Malachi Toney and Carson Beck. I just don't know that you can shut down Malachi Toney with how good he has been, but I don't expect him to put up like 30, 20 points like he has been over most of the season because of how good Pittsburgh's defense is. I still think you have to start him. He's just a guy who clearly is the best wide receiver on that offense. And when Carson Beck is going to drop back and throw the ball, that's going to be his first read, I would guess, more often than not. So I'm still starting Malachi Toney, but I would probably lower my expectations a little. Again, I don't know exactly what we have him projected at right now on points wise, but I think it's probably a fair projection to expect him to be maybe around like that 15 to 18 points. We have him at 15.9. I think that's a fair projection. Now he's overshot that pretty much every single game this year. So he probably will do that again today, but I would expect it to not be by much because of what I expect, again, Pittsburgh's defense to be able to do against that offense.
Yeah, you mentioned what they have to play for and what they need. They do absolutely have to win. There's a couple scenarios where they can get in. They do need a little bit of help, like UVA losing, Duke losing. They need at least 2 other teams and a bunch of other stuff to happen, but they still got to have a shot. And they're not out of it in terms of like an at-large bid either. So I do think they have a lot to play for. I would trust Toney this week too, although I definitely get the concerns with the passing attack. I might be a little more skeptical on Beck, but if they're gonna win this game, they're gonna need Toney. And Pitt puts up a bunch of points, so they're gonna have to score to keep up with them.
Yeah.
All right, moving into 16 through 30 at the wide receiver position. And if you have any questions, anybody you're struggling with, drop them in the chat there. We'll get to all of your start-sit questions. But we have 16 Junior Vanderos versus Central Michigan. 17, Danny Scudero versus Fresno State. 18, Alex Perry versus Sam Houston. 19, Antonio Williams versus South Carolina. 20, Anthony Smith versus Florida Atlantic. 21, Keyshawn Singleton versus Rice. 22, Sean Wilson versus UTEP. 23, Jeremiah Kroger versus Rice. We got the other part of the USF duo in the top 25 here. Elijah Metcalf from Southern Miss at 24 versus Troy. Ted Hurst, who is questionable today at 25 versus Old Dominion. And his quarterback, Cameron Brown, is out as well. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Shelton Sampson versus UL Monroe at 26. Jacoby Lane at 27 versus UCLA. Carnell Tate at 28 versus Michigan. He is full go. Lewis Bond at 29 versus Syracuse, and 30, Corey Rucker versus App State. Carnell Tate versus Michigan. He's full go,
Yeah.
Are you trusting him in your lineup?
Yes. I mean, look, last year, Jeremiah Smith, again, I think you could argue not only the best wide receiver in college football last year, but also this year. And you could argue one of the best football players in all of college football. Only had 35 yards and a touchdown in this game last year, right? Like they made it a point to shut him down. Carnell Tate was not, I don't remember honestly what Carnell Tate did against them last year. I mean, it was not a great day for Ohio State. But I do think in the games where teams have shut down Carnell Tate this year, or I'm sorry, Jeremiah Smith this year, Carnell Tate has been the one who's benefited. And I think that could happen again here today. The thing with this is while I do think that Ohio State should win this game, I really do think Ryan Day is going to do everything he can to run up the score as well. I don't know that they put a ton on Michigan today. I still think Michigan's a good team, but I would trust playing Carnell Tate. I know that there's been a lot of talk about his injury and everything else. I truly think they've been saving him for this game and the playoff run. There was no reason to have him out there the past couple weeks, but I know there's been a lot of behind the scenes talks and rumors about, this is a guy he's pulling a JSN and all this other stuff. No, I think Carnell Tate's healthy. He's good to go. They said that he's practiced all week. I would feel very comfortable running him out there in my championship game with what he's done this season.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he's been off for a couple of weeks. Carnell Tate has, but when we last saw him, he's been really good. 3 of his last 5 games that he's played, he has over 100 yards and a touchdown in both of them. 10, 7, 7, 5 targets in his last 4 games. So Jeremiah Smith is the best wide receiver in the country. And Jeremiah Smith, you can talk about him as a potential Heisman candidate, and I think that's very valid. But Carnell Tate is no slouch either, and he is good enough that I think you have to respect him. You can't put all your attention on Jeremiah Smith. But if they want to, then Carnell Tate's going to go nuts. So I think Carnell Tate has a nice floor just because of his role in the offense. But like you mentioned, if they try to shut down Jeremiah Smith, we could see a big game out of Carnell Tate. So since he's going, I'm rolling him out there.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you 100%.
Anything else stand out to you on this list that we have here? We have some familiar names on this list.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Scudero, again, I think it's just him going up against Fresno State, obviously, with what he's done this year. I think you could expect him to be a little bit better than that 17 spot. Jacoby Lane there at 27, another player I think could be a little bit better. UCLA, not great, though. Some of that I think kind of just depends on Jaden Maava and how he's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride this year at times at quarterback. Ted Hurst is the main one, though. You mentioned it. Right now, he's listed as questionable. We haven't heard anything else. And the worst part about that being a guy like at Georgia State, Georgia Southern?
Georgia State. You're right.
Georgia State. Okay. I was confused there for a second, a little bit worried. It's not the NFL, right? Like we don't get full injury updates and reports at this point. So like we may not even know going into the game if he's going to play. I expect him to, and I truly hope he does because of how good he's been. I believe he's out of eligibility, correct? So like this could possibly be his last game outside of, them. I actually don't know where they're sitting in the rankings, if they have a chance to make a bowl game or make it to their championship game. Let's see here. They are sitting at,
I don't think they're having a good year. I think
they are
not 3 or 4 wins.
They have 1 win. Yeah. So they're not making a bowl game and they are definitely not making their championship game. So this is it. This is his last chance to play college football. So I truly hope that he goes out there. He's got a decent matchup here against Old Dominion, who has been good this year. I really hope that he plays, but that's when you got to watch. You've got to pay very close attention and hope that something comes across, whether it's, us here at Campus of Canton. Again, follow the C2C newsroom. We've mentioned this before. Colin did such a great job of setting that up. It's constantly tweeting out news as soon as it's happening. So make sure to pay attention to that and any other sources you have to see if Ted Hurst is going to play.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good shout. Definitely a name to keep an eye on. And you brought up Danny Scudero, the missile.
Yeah.
I know he's had a couple of duds in the past here in the recent games. He's got 6 points, 9 points, 8.5 points in 3 of his last 5. But he also has a 40 burger in there and 20. And he has 14 targets, 7 targets, 10 targets, 9, and 12 in his last 5. He's getting targeted very, very heavily. hasn't really hit the end zone except for that game against Hawaii. I totally understand the concern with him. Fresno State is a good defense, but the volume is so good that I have to have other good options that I would start over Danny Scudero. Lewis Bond against Syracuse, I think, is a guy that I would probably start over Danny Scudero because that Syracuse defense is so bad. Carnell Tate is a guy that I would start over Danny Scudero. But the rest of the guys on this list, the USF duo, Singleton and Kroger, Wilson, Metcalf, Rucker, not sure I like any of those guys more than the floor that Danny Scudero gets me.
Yeah. Nope. Yep. I agree with you. I think at this point, it's something that I think everybody says, even people on the NFL fantasy side of things. At this point, it's just you got to trust your studs. You got to trust the guys who brought you here. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to feel 10 times worse if you end up playing like a Corey Rucker over Danny Scudero and you look down and you see Scudero went off for his 20 plus points compared to if you start Danny Scudero and he only gets you 9 and Corey Rucker goes for 15 or 16. Like then it was the right process, just bad result. That happens sometimes with fantasy. It's why we hate it but love it. So I would feel much more comfortable just going with Danny Scudero and letting the cards fall as they lay.
Yeah, I agree. Alex Perry, though, right behind him, that's a matchup I really like. That Sam Houston defense is awful. They've been really bad all year. Alex Perry at 18, that's a guy that I think could, at the end of the week, if you told me he was a top 10 wide receiver in the week, that would not surprise me at all. Soft matchup, and he's been on a tear lately. So Perry is probably a guy I would start over Scudero if I had the option.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think he's right there. I mean, Keyshawn Singleton's another guy too that's kind of like in that range of players that are right there. That if you have those guys, I would feel good about playing them. I mean, Singleton has also been pretty good over the past couple of weeks and just this season. So, I mean, if you have someone close, and again, if you have questions or you're a little bit worried, drop it in the chat. We'll definitely help you because I mean, Singleton's been on fire as of late. Really, only had 3 games that he hasn't return some kind of value for you. So if you have someone in that range, definitely.
Yeah. And speaking of Singleton and Scudero, we have a question in the chat here from Todd Skids saying Malachi Tony, Danny Scudero, or Keyshawn Singleton. Pick one. They are all like 21 and Tony is at 14. So they're all in that stretch there. You have to pick one. Who are you taking?
Oh, man, as crazy as this is probably going to sound, because he is the lowest ranked of the 3, I think I would feel the safest going with Singleton. I like the matchup against Rice. Like I said, he's been very consistent over the season. Right now, sure, I think overall he's ranked as wide receiver 69, averaging 14 points a game. But, I mean, he's only had 3 dud games, and those were all back at the beginning of the season. Since then, 14, 11, 15, 28, 21, 15. In my opinion, the much safer matchup against Rice and Scudero going up against Fresno State, and definitely Tony going up against, again, what I think is a very good Pittsburgh secondary. I just find it so hard to start Singleton, specifically over Tony. I feel safe doing it over Scudero. Tony has just been so good. I mean, he has been arguably one of the best wide receivers in college football this year. I think, again, I said you kind of have to roll with the guys that brought you. So, like, it would be very hard for me to bench Tony for Singleton. I would not bench him for Scudero. It would be a toss-up for me between Tony and Singleton. I think Singleton's got the chance to produce much more than Tony does, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we just we just talked a little bit about Scudero. If you're going to sit him, you have to feel like you have a really good backup option. And I think Tony and Singleton are good backup options. Singleton gives you some safety. He's, like you mentioned, he's been really solid all year, hovering between like 15 to 25 points. Rice is a soft matchup. We saw Wyatt Young explode against them last week for like 290 yards or something like that. So it's not like this is an intimidating matchup at all. USF needs to win. I think they can still get to the American title game, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It'll depend on.
I mean, it depends on. Break. Yeah, it depends. I think Tulane and Navy both have to lose
Mhm.
today for them to make it in. So they still have a chance. And let's also be honest, I don't think it's been fully finalized yet, but the reports are Alex Golesh might be on his way out. And if
Mhm.
that's the case, then, Byron Brown and Singleton could be players who possibly go with him. So they're looking for big days as well.
Yeah, and actually Navy beat Memphis. You were right. Navy did have to lose. Navy beat Memphis on Thanksgiving. So I think Navy would get in over USF. So you're right. Good call on that one. So they are out of it. Golesh might is likely leaving. So what's this team look like actually? With that in mind, if USF not really have anything to play for, I think actually I would go with Tony.
Yeah.
I was leaning that way anyway. Tony's been good as well. He's had a couple of matchups that haven't been great, but the last 2 weeks, 35 points, 25 points. That's actually that's going to push me towards Tony. So Todd, I would start Tony out of that group. All right. Keep dropping your start sit questions in the chat. We will make sure we get to all of them. Matt, anything else stand out to you, wide receivers, before we jump to the tight ends?
Nope. Let's go talk about tight ends.
Well, let's do it. Let's talk about some tight ends. And we do have some tight end news. Michael Trigg has been announced as out as of this morning. He was looking doubtful heading into this. So I hope you have another option because he has officially been declared out. And at number 12, Josh Cuevas, he is also out this week. So both of those guys have been announced as out as of this morning. Keep an eye on that. Rest of the tight ends, though, seem good to go. We have Eli Stowers at number 1 versus Tennessee, Tanner Koziol at number 2 versus Baylor, Kenyon Sadiq number 3 versus Washington. Michael Trigg was number 4, but he is out, like we mentioned. Justin Jolie, number 5 versus North Carolina. Brody Foley, 6 versus UAB. Number 7, Dylan Wade against BYU. He's been having a monster season so far. Wade has got him rolling in one of my matchups. Grant Hollier at number 8 versus Old Dominion. Number 9, Sam Roush versus Notre Dame. Terrence Carter, number 10 versus West Virginia. Garrett Oakley, number 11 versus Colorado. And he has been called a game time decision. So we are keeping an eye out on Garrett Oakley this week. Josh Cuevas at 12 has been ruled out already. Joel Hasley, 13 versus Wake Forest. 14, Carson Ryan versus UCF. And 15, Trades Green versus Oklahoma. Tight ends, anything standing out to you here this week?
I mean, the Michael Trigg one, just a massive blow. And kind of the Michael Trigg experience, right? He's a guy that, over the past couple of years has been inconsistent, dealt with injuries, and all of a sudden this year just having an incredible season. Again, you're likely in your championship game because of him. And then to not have him in the championship game is a massive blow, as you mentioned. Hopefully you have at least someone decent to put in there. I'm one of those people who don't have a great option. I'm going with, I believe it's John Michael Gillenborg in mind, because I just don't really have anybody else to play. I was really kind of hoping Trigg would find a way to get it done, but really sucks. Makes sense from him. I'm sure, Baylor out of everything, and he's got the NFL future ahead of him. So sucks to lose a guy that's that talented in your championship game, but definitely if you can pivot as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mason Minnie is a guy that I have in a couple of places. He's also out this week. That's why we don't see him on there. So I have a league where I have Minnie and Trigg. That's going to be a tough one this week. So definitely tight end could be a make or break for some championship teams out there. Hopefully, hopefully you're rolling out Stowers, Koziel, Sadiq, maybe Jolie, probably guys that I trust a lot. Trades Green going up against Oklahoma, I think is an interesting one. I don't know what that LSU passing offense is going to look like. And Oklahoma defense, very good.
Very, very good. Yeah, yeah. Green. But I mean, Green, I think at this point, specifically with tight ends, he will make your day if he at least gets in the end zone, which I still think is possible. LSU wanting to play spoiler against the Sooners, probably the only thing they have left to play for this season. But yeah, I wouldn't expect a ton out of him going up against a very good Oklahoma, not just secondary, just defense in general. They should be able to get after the passing game a little bit here of LSU.
Yeah. Yep. We had Daniel in the chat say he put Alex Perry in over Scudero, but it might change it back to so there's some action to watch late tonight. Hey, I get that. This is the championship, man.
Yeah.
I'm rolling Perry out there over Scudero. I'm not not going to get too cute with it. I like Perry this week a lot. I know it's nice to have a guy late, and if you're down by 10 and you got Scudero going late and you're like, man, I just need a couple more points out of him, and you're watching that game, it is nice and it is fun. But you know what's more fun?
Winning.
Yeah. Winning.
I
would keep it with Perry.
You know what makes it more fun? Turning on that game late tonight knowing you've already won because you started a player who put up a ton of points for you, and just watching the game for fun. I get it, though. I'm the same way. I was actually just looking at my lineup. I was like, well, I got John Michael Gillenborg going tonight at 11 o'clock, so maybe there's a chance. But yeah, I take the win. If I think Perry is probably the safer play tonight. Definitely want to just secure that win in the championship week. We want you to take home that money, baby.
We do. Speaking of money, we're going to be winning you some money here this week. We have our underdog plays coming up right now. Just Matt and I this week. No Austin. Austin has been on a heater, but he's not here this week. So, blame him. But Matt, what do you got this week? It looks like you got a couple picks in the same game over there.
Yeah, so I started with LJ Martin. So actually my first one, if I'm being honest with you, was the Jeremiah Smith one, but then I saw you had that. So I was like, okay, yeah. I'm definitely going to pivot to someone else. I didn't want to have the same one, but again, I do think, I'm sure you'll talk more about it, he's likely going to score in this one. But LJ Martin, I have the higher on his 0.5 receiving or rush touchdown. Look, he's been scoring rushing touchdowns again. He coming off that shoulder injury. I know he didn't score against Texas Tech a couple weeks ago. That was that first week back off that injury again, or against arguably the best defense in the Big 12. Didn't score a touchdown in that one. But then since then bounced back with a touchdown and then 2 last week against Cincinnati. UCF is a team that BYU should win this game easily. I expect LJ Martin, and I'll just say Bear Bachmeier also on there higher on the 0.5 rush or receiving touchdown. I think both those guys are going to run it into the end zone for BYU today. Again, they have everything to play for. They have to win to get into the Big 12 championship game. Both those guys are the center points of their offense, obviously with Chase Roberts as well, but we've seen Bear Bachmeier using his legs a lot more of late. So I expect him to also get into the end zone. And then the other one here is Dean Connors. I mentioned him earlier. I do think that Houston will struggle a little bit with Baylor today, but they have, and Connor Wigman has not been afraid to dump the ball off here to Dean Connors for a little bit here. 38, 27, and 47 receiving yards as of late against teams that I think that they are comparable to Baylor's defense. Now, he did have 17 against Arizona State and only 16 against UCF, which, but again, he did fairly good rushing the ball in that one. I expect him to go higher than the 20.5 receiving yards in that one, because again, I think Baylor will be getting after Wigman a little bit. He'll dump the ball off. So I expect Dean Connors to go higher on the 20.5 receiving yards, and all of those are still in play. I just went to go look at them just to make sure, and they are all still in play.
Nice. Yeah, we put these together Friday night, so we have time to make the graphics. So sometimes the lines do move a little bit, but I like Connors. I like that call there. I'm stuck in that same game. I have Amari Thomas higher than 67.5 receptions. We have Wigman ranked pretty highly in the rankings this week, and I get that we discussed it. Might be a little bit difficult to trust him. We both feel that way, but the numbers like him. This is a soft matchup. And Amari Thomas has been over this 67.5 receiving yards number in 7 of his last 8 games. 72, 103, 99 in his last 3 games. So pretty comfortably over this in his last couple. He's been cooking. And again, Baylor is a soft matchup. Yeah. So I like Amari Thomas higher than 67.5 receiving yards. Jeremiah Smith higher than 0.5 rush and receiving touchdowns. And when I was looking at this and saw this one, I was like, this has to be like a Black Friday special. How often do you get Jeremiah Smith a one touchdown? Typically it's 1.5. It's not often that you get Jeremiah Smith to score. And I'm going to take the higher. I think he's going to score in this game. He's the best receiver in the country. Yeah, Michigan can do everything they can to try and keep it out of Jeremiah Smith's hand, but then Carnell Tate can beat him. And I think they know that. So I like Jeremiah Smith to show out in this one, get a big win. You mentioned they might try to run it up if they can on Michigan, given the way the last couple of years have gone. So I like Jeremiah Smith to score. And then the last one I have is Carson Hansen, running back at Iowa State, to score. He was pretty high up in our rankings this week. And he's been, the last 3 weeks, he's had a pretty solid stretch here. Over 100 yards in all 3 of them. A touchdown, at least one touchdown in 3 of 4. Gets most of that work on the ground. Brings a little bit in the receiving game. But with the way he's been playing, with Oklahoma State's defense, I like Carson Hansen to get in the end zone here this week too. You're almost assuredly going to get it on the ground if he gets it. So he has no receiving touchdowns on the year. But with this turn to Carson Hansen as more of the focal point of the rushing game, he's averaging 20 carries, like 25 carries a game over the last 3 here. So Carson Hansen should have a big day. I think he's getting in the end zone.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think all 3 of those are great picks. I think obviously you'll have to pick and choose if you're just going to use our 6 here. I think you can't play more than 2 in a game, and we have doubled up a bunch of those with me, LJ Martin, Bear Bachmeyer, and then the Dean Connors, Amari Thomas ones. But yeah, I think all those should be winning plays for you today. Specifically the Jeremiah Smith one. I'm all aboard on that one as well.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that one. That's probably my favorite of the week here. Okay, keep dropping your start sit questions in the chat as they come up. We will keep getting to those. But we'll do some injury news here. No Chris this week. No betting. So we'll hit some injury news here quick. We've been kind of updating you guys as it's been going. But we have Keywan Brown, the running back at Louisville. He is out this week, as is Duke Watson and a lot of those, all of the other running backs there on Louisville's roster. They're starting a freshman back there, walk-on freshman. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate are full go for Ohio State in the game. We both said we're starting them with confidence this week. Cameron Brown, the quarterback at Georgia State, is out, and Ted Hurst is questionable. So that is one to keep an eye on for sure. Michael Trigg is out this week. Hopefully you have a backup option. Denzel Boston and Jonah Coleman are in this week. They are expected to start against Oregon. Desmond Reed is off of the injury report as well. Up again for that game against Miami. I don't think I'm starting Reed in that game if you have him. But they're going to need him. So we'll see. And then Josh Cuevas is out at Alabama, the tight end. Jeremy Bernard is listed as probable. We discussed Jeremy Bernard as somebody that we were both saying we felt like you could start this week.
Yeah.
Chase Roberts is also a game time decision for BYU, something to keep an eye on. That I think impacts Parker Kingston. Parker Kingston is a guy who I am rolling out in a matchup, so I need him to have a big day. So we'll see. All right. Yeah. I haven't seen any other news. Any other news that you've seen break?
No, I just looked. Again, Ted Hurst listed as a game time decision. So unfortunately, we're not going to know at this point. We won't know, unfortunately, until he goes out there. So at this point, you either take the risk and play him or swap him out and go with somebody else. What are your thoughts on that, Colin, before we jump into, I guess, picking games and everything? If you had Ted Hurst, would you just roll with someone you think are going to get the points, or you just take the shot and go with Hurst and hope he plays and does something here again against a good Old Dominion team? They're in the chance to play for their championship.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would not start Hurst, even if he is going to play. They are going to have a different quarterback there. So I'm worried about that. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Like you mentioned, Old Dominion is a good team.
Yeah.
I think I'm pivoting, going another direction other than Hurst. And then we had Jim in the chat say, any update on Oakley, the tight end for Kansas State? He's listed as a game time decision as the last time we saw. So hopefully you have auto sub. If you don't, I don't know that Oakley brings enough like a high-end option that I would trust him. I think I would probably try and pivot somewhere else. Tight end's kind of sparse, so it depends on what you have. And I know there's some other injuries too. Like we mentioned, Mason Minnie is out as well. So you might not have another option. You might have to roll him out there and hope, but I would not feel good about that personally.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I am with you on that. Not sure what to expect.
Yannick Smith is also in full gear and looks to be moving okay in pregame. Might try to give it a go. So if you were keeping an eye on Yannick Smith as a potential guy to start this week, he might play. Could impact Anthony Smith as well, but I would still feel okay about Anthony Smith against Florida Atlantic. Probably not starting Yannick Smith, even if he goes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Jim says he had Daquan Wright's 2.4 points as his auto sub. So rolling with Max Clare. Max Clare had a huge week last week. What are your thoughts on Max Clare this week?
I mean, he could be a guy who does something. You know, again, I mentioned earlier last time Jeremiah Smith played Michigan. I believe it was like 35 yards. I do think he got a touchdown if I'm remembering correctly, but it was not much in that game. Again, I expect Michigan's defense to come in here and try to shut him down, then allows Saint to kind of go to Carnell Tate and Max Clare. We know that he's not afraid to pivot. He distributes the ball very well. I think that's why he's looked so efficient in Ryan Day's offense. I mean, again, if you're sitting there with Wright's 2.4 points, I mean, I would say Max Clare can probably get you that at least, maybe. I mean, we'll see. I mean, Max Clare is by far the biggest, could get you a touchdown today, could get you absolutely nothing. And at that point, I'm fine with you rolling with Max Clare, because if he gets you nothing, at least if you're only pivoting to Wright's 2.4 points, it's 2 more points than nothing. So, you know, it's very hard to project Max Clare doing anything because he's just not been a massive part of this offense.
Yeah. I get the concern with Clare, given what we talked about with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Like, those are the engines of this offense.
Yeah.
But with not knowing Oakley's status, I think I am rolling Clare out there. He's been solid all year. He has at least 5 catches in 4 of the last 5. He's got 5, 1 against Penn State, and then 5, 5, and 7. So I think I feel pretty good he's going to get you more than 2.4 points. You know, and I don't know how much more of a ceiling Oakley has. So I would roll Clare out there. I'm with you, Jim.
You know what's just like super sad and disappointing?
What's that?
I'm just going to talk about me for a second here, because I'm allowed to.
Yeah, go for it.
My league of record team that has just been dominating, and I think you are one of the only teams I've lost to this year. You destroyed me the week that we played. You put like 350 on me. But I'm in the championship game. Not only did I lose Michael Trigg, but now it looks like I am going to lose Ted Hurst. And do you want to take a guess at who I'm having to start in hopes of just getting me any kind of points? Vernell Brown III, because also Chase Roberts is out. So I'm not. Things are not looking good for your boy Matty B over here, going up against Andy Starr. Good luck to you, Andy. By the way, I believe he's been the second best team in the league. So it's always fun when you see the top 2 teams in the league make the championship game. We are by far the top 2 in points scored and record. So nervous. I will be putting my phone away once games kick off and not looking at that till later tonight. At a wedding that hopefully I'll be a little bit drunk at, so that if I lost, the score won't matter as much. I definitely won't chunk my phone or throw my phone in the middle of a wedding. So probably the best time to look at it. So I'll be on my best behavior.
That's fair. That's fair. You better be on your best behavior.
I try,
All right, let's pick some games. We got 15 minutes left here, but keep dropping any start sit questions you have or injury questions, anything you have in the chat. We will make sure we get to all of them, except for the one from Electric Ladybugs. Not gonna fall for that one. Game lines this week. We have Ohio State, number 1 in the country, versus Michigan, number 12, at Michigan. Ohio State's 10-point favorites.
Yeah.
Who you got in this one, Matt?
I mean, I'm going to take the Buckeyes only because I'm wishing this into existence. It's been 4 years since Ohio State has been able to beat that team up north. Obviously, going into the Big House is not easy to win. And I do think that Michigan is probably a better team than they're getting credit for. Sharon Moore did it all by himself last year in beating an Ohio State team that I'm pretty sure was favored close to this number last year with the quarterback who could not throw the ball, and Bryce Underwood can. But if Ryan Day is going to get it done, this is the year with the offense that he has and the way Julian Sain has been able to distribute the ball. So I will take the Buckeyes even with the 10, which feels like a lot.
Yeah, 10 feels like a lot, and I do have Ohio State in this one. I think they will win by 2 touchdowns. I agree with you. I think Ryan Day would pour this on if he can.
Yeah.
Being in Michigan is going to make that tough. But I just think Ohio State is clearly a better team. I think Michigan is a little bit of a fraud as well. They've had a pretty soft schedule. And they lost to the 2 best teams on there. So give me Ohio State by 10. I don't love the line, but I think this Buckeyes team is the best team in the country.
Yeah. Just real quick, I got a text from my my friend who works for Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate went through warmups. Both of them have obviously been dealing with the lower body injuries. Neither one has been seen limping or going easy in any of the drills. It is windy at the stadium, but it shouldn't be in any kind of way that affects Sayan's ability to throw the ball. So again, if you started Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, I mean, at least feel good in the fact that they're both healthy. It sounds like they're both ready and good to go. Now, again, going up against that defense is a little bit of a different story, but
yeah. Yep, agreed. Next matchup here, we have number 12, Miami, a 7-point favorite going up against number 22, Pitt, in a very pivotal game this week. Matt, who you got?
I'm going to take Pitt. Look, again, I think that this Pitt defense passing, getting 7 points, I think Pitt will be able to keep it close. And I did say that against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame really kind of blitzed Pitt. But I think a lot of that was the Jeremiah Love show where, again, Pitt does struggle against the run, but I don't think Miami has a very strong running game. They do seem to really rely on Carson Beck, and that is the best part about Pitt's defense is that passing attack, that secondary. I think they're going to be able to get after Beck. I think they're going to be able to get him turn the ball over. And as crazy as this sounds, I don't think Mason Heinschel's scared to go up against a Miami Hurricanes team. And even if he throws a pick or two himself, I think he's going to keep throwing the ball. So I expect them to keep this game close, and I think Pitt's going to get the upset.
I am with you. I think Pitt is going to get the upset here as well. Now, the 7-point line makes me feel better about it as well. If Miami does pull this out, I think it's going to be inside of a touchdown. But under Mario Cristobal, Miami is 4-11 in November. So name a more iconic duo than Mario Cristobal and falling flat on his face whenever he has a chance to get Miami into the playoff. I don't think Miami's going to be able to pull this off. I think they're going to fall flat. I think they're the better team, but the better team doesn't always win. So give me Pitt in this one. I think they get it done outright, but I think definitely inside the 7.
Yeah.
All right, we have number 14 Vanderbilt going up against number 19 Tennessee. Tennessee 2.5 point favorites here.
Yeah.
I think this is a very pivotal game today.
Yeah.
A lot on the stake here for a team like Vanderbilt. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt probably not going to make the playoffs. I think, especially with that Texas win last night, seems fairly improbable, but still battling for a lot. I couldn't tell you the last time Vanderbilt was ranked this high. So, I mean, they've got a lot to play for. Diego Pavia has come out and said they want to be the top team in Tennessee. And there's a part of me that would really like them to be, because I really want them to flip top recruit Jared Curtis from Georgia to Vanderbilt. But I'm going to take Tennessee. Again, I think Aguilar has been up and down in SEC play, but I think that he is going to be able to kind of get after this Vandy defense. And if they are able to start putting up some points, I just think Pavia is going to struggle to keep up with them. I think Tennessee wins this by at least a touchdown. So I'm going to take the Volunteers.
Okay. I'm going to go with Vandy here in this one. I think Tennessee is another team that, like Michigan, is a little bit fraudulent. I mean, they haven't beaten, I don't think they've beaten a team with a winning record yet this year. They beat like Syracuse, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Florida in SEC play. New Mexico State, UAB, East Tennessee State. Just no impressive wins on the schedule. They lost to Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma. Like I don't think this Tennessee team is as good as their record says right now, although they're 4-3 in the SEC, 8-3 overall. And I think this Vanderbilt team is very good. Pavia wants that Heisman. I mean, this is a dude who can come out there and just drag a team to a win. And I think that's kind of what they do here. So give me Tennessee, or give me Vanderbilt to win outright in this one, but especially as an underdog. Wrong team favorite.
All right.
We have number 6, Oregon, a 7-point favorite against Washington at Washington this week. Another big matchup.
Yeah.
Who you got in this one?
I am going to take Washington, and this is probably just solely because I need Damon Williams to play well today, have him going in a couple places. But I do think that, Washington is a team that plays better at home. I know they lost to Ohio State there in what was not much of a game at home. I believe when they played Michigan, they were on the road. But Oregon is still a team that is, well, I think a good team, and I think the better team on paper, still dealing with some pretty pivotal injuries for their team. I think that this team will be able to get after Dante Moore a little bit, which could make that Oregon offense struggle just a little bit. And if Damon Williams can make some magic happen, I think Washington will stay in this game. So I am going to take Washington getting the 7, but I think Oregon still wins the game.
I think Oregon wins the game. And I think they win by more than 7. I think everything you said about the Oregon-Washington is totally valid here. Washington with Damon Williams is a dangerous team. But I just think what it comes down to is Oregon is a very good team overall.
Yeah.
They had that loss to Indiana, but that's been their only loss all year. They've gotten it done with a number of different wide receiver options. They don't have like one singular guy to lean on. They've gotten it done with the running game as well. I think this is just a fairly well-rounded team. And they need to win. They need to win. They have to win to get in to the playoff, I think, to assure that they are in the playoff. And like we mentioned earlier in the show, Damon Williams' split at Washington in day games is actually not very good. He's been significantly better at night, and this game is a noon or 12:30 kickoff out there in the Pacific. So give me Oregon and the points at -7. All right, last matchup we have here, the Iron Bowl, Alabama, number 10, 5.5-point favorites at Auburn in Jordan-Hare. Who you got?
Man, if they were starting Deuce 9, I think I'd take Auburn getting the 5.5s. I think they can keep it close, but I believe Daniels is starting. Is that correct? That was announced earlier this week. Look, I just think Alabama's the better team. Auburn has definitely shown a little bit more fight since Hugh Freeze has been let go. And I think that they probably can challenge Ty Simpson and this passing attack, since they know that they really don't have to worry about the rushing attack, right? Like, we just know Alabama's rushing game is not going to get going. But I just think on paper, outside of Auburn putting in Deuce Knight at some point and trying to give them a spark, is just the better team. And I think Alabama probably wins this by at least a touchdown. Like, and again, that's more than enough. They're only getting the 5, Auburn's getting 5.5. I think Alabama could win by a touchdown. I know it's the Iron Bowl, and you never know with rivalry games, but again, with everything Alabama has to play for, with if they win this, they're in the SEC championship game, and probably at this point locking up a bye and a top seed in the playoffs. If they do that, I think that they're going to go out there and take care of business. So I'm gonna take the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Crimson Tide here as well. And the points, I think, inside of a touchdown, I definitely like Alabama, but I'm with you. I think Alabama comes out here and wins by 2 touchdowns, or more. I think they put it on Auburn. They know what they have to play for. They know they need to win and get in. You can't ever count out a rival in a rivalry game, and especially when it's in Jordan Hare, it's at Auburn. But I don't think Ashton Daniels is that great. I think if Deuce Knight's out there, maybe he gives them a little bit of creativity, but I also think he would struggle against Alabama. This Alabama defense is very good. The run game for Alabama has been the concern all year, but I think with Jeremy Bernard back, they're going to be able to move the ball on Auburn through the air. And like you said, it's winning into the SEC title game for them. So give me Alabama and the points in this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have any other start sits in the chat here, but we do have people saying good luck to everyone in their finals today. Good luck to you, Jim. I know you have at least one matchup that you're going for. Sorry, we didn't have the more news on Garrett Oakley, anything more definitive, but hopefully pivoting to Claire will help you. Corey P in the chat, good luck to everybody in the finals today as well. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Jim, for tuning in all year, asking a ton of great questions. We really appreciate that. Yeah. Good luck to everybody from me. Matt, anything you want to say before we get out of here? Got 3 minutes.
No, just like I said, good luck to everybody today in their finals, including Andy, who I'm going up against. Again, I think, at the end of the day, it's why we love playing this game. And even if you lose, just remember it was a great season. Hopefully you're in a league where at least second place still pays out. You still won money. It's really hard to get here, even following everything we do or all the other great CFF resources. I mean, again, Colin and I are both founders of this company. I've dropped my C2C leagues a decent bit. I'm only in 6 now, but I'm only in 2 finals. And I would not consider myself anywhere near an expert.
33%. 33% hit,
still,
right?
I would not consider myself anywhere near an expert. There's a lot of other people in this industry who are much smarter than I am, and I guarantee they're probably in the same amount. It's very hard to get here. So feel good about what you've accomplished this year, making it to a final, and win or lose, know that you've had a great season, and looking forward to helping you guys in the off season. But enjoy a beautiful day of football. Rivalry weekend is what I think separates college football from every other sport. Absolutely love it. So enjoy the weekend of, or I guess it's just today now at this point. Enjoy the day of football, and I'm hoping all of you win your championships.
Agreed. Great day of football. A lot of games on today. Thank you all for a great season. This will be the last show this year since the CFF season is over. But going out on a high note, going out on rivalry week, going out, winning all of you guys some championships. Good luck. And thank you for that. All right. Good luck.